So we had a couple of stories coming out of yesterday when we had Nintendo and Sony not only drop their financial results for the fiscal year, but also had quite a bit to say. So I picked out two specific instances that I wanted to go over, which includes Nintendo actually apologizing to people over the price increase and sort of their plan, I guess, as to how they'll get people to buy the Switch 2 system, and Sony commenting a bit on the PlayStation 6. And there's one thing in there that really piqued my interest because it does make me wonder exactly how they are going to go about selling the PlayStation 6 console when it's time to launch. We'll go over all of that and more. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. I mean, I was going through all this stuff, and there's so much that happened that there's me a bunch that falls into news wave on Monday, but even then is overflowing. So I figured I wanted to go over a couple of these here. So this is Shintaro Furukawa actually apologizing to people over the $50 price increase in the US and then also price increase in Japan, which is actually quite substantial just considering the yen and sort of its value right now in the world with exchange rates. Again, the Switch 2 at this time, the Japan specific one is well, when it goes up in price in May, will become more expensive than the PlayStation 5 Japan only system. I mean, that's a big thing for Nintendo to now become the more expensive system there, right, in the region. I still think they're going to do pretty well in Japan, as they tend to, but it is something that I'm sure people are, of course, raising their eyebrows at. But this was speaking during a financial results briefing, and keep in mind, we tend to see these transcribed and then even translated by Nintendo and released on their investors relations portal. So we'll get, I'm sure, more Q&A put out there as we go along, and we'll see if there's any interesting things that investors are able to get out of Nintendo in these Q&As. But at this point, Furukawa also apologizing to consumers, saying, "We sincerely apologize to our customers for the considerable inconvenience and trouble this will cause. While we wanted to prioritize a wide adoption, it was challenging to bear the rising costs over a long period. The new pricing does not fully account for all cost increases." And that's something important to mention here, because there's probably other things they're going to look at and think, can we, or do we have to raise the price on this so that the numbers even out and they make sense, right? I know people want to believe that a lot of these companies are thinking about the consumer's best interest. No, it's like the health of the company. And while a lot of these companies could indeed eat the cost for so long, eventually they have to be a for-profit business, and that's when you see prices go up so they can try to make this all work out at the bottom line of the balance sheet. All right. So with that in mind, what do they do to overcome this price increase? They say they will prepare a robust software lineup to enhance Switch 2 ownership value. We work diligently to overcome this barrier. All right, so you also talk about the second year forecast, which should also be somewhat important here, as that will align with the software releases that they're setting up, because you figure software, of course, will drive hardware sales, specifically, as Nintendo likes to, exclusive software for their hardware. And they mentioned the efforts to strengthen the supply chain. The first year sales reached an unprecedented level. The demand in the second year is firm, and we believe that the adoption of Switch 2 is progressing smoothly. Now, when they put their forecast out of 16.5 million, that of course is less than the almost 20 million they were able to achieve for this past fiscal year, but that was revised upwards twice, I believe, up to 19 million. Originally it started at 15 million, that was their plan, and now they're saying, okay, we're going to do another 1.5 million ahead of that at 16.5 million. Okay, so in order to, yes, try to drive interest in there now, well, in September, $500 system, we'll say, in the US, they have to have compelling software. What a shocking idea and concept. Now, what does that mean? Well, we've already heard about Ocarina of Time remake. Yeah, that's going to have widespread appeal and very well could be pulling people back who older now remember Ocarina of Time, and that would probably play into a group that would have enough money maybe to come back and buy the $500 system because they want to relive Ocarina of Time. But even so, that is when you start talking about, yes, the big 3D Pokemon game. We already know that's coming out 2027. You talk about the 3D Mario, you talk about the big 3D Zelda outside of even Ocarina of Time. Maybe that's saved for a reveal next year after Ocarina of Time remake is out. And then you look around at things like Animal Crossing. You basically go on the list of all of your really popular IPs and you start picking out how you can align this next to a now $500 system as we get towards the holiday season. And this is a point where I know we've talked about, hey, it's nice to know about a game when it's about to release. Like, hey, the Star Fox reveal, that was pretty cool. Hey, it's out in less than 2 months. That's fun. I don't have to wait long. We're already seeing pre-order pages go live. The box art is up. People are walking into stores and they're seeing it on the shelf, so you can take it up to the counter and pre-order it and stuff. Great. But that's not always going to be the case. And sometimes you just need the existence of almost a promise for a game to get people like, oh, you know what? I heard that big 3D Zelda game's coming out. I will think about the Switch 2 more as we go along here. Just to kind of keep it in people's minds that, yes, that is something we are planning, but it's not out for several years. Nintendo's done this before, so it's not like it's a new concept. It's just recently they have been announcing things as they are closer and closer to a release. And yeah, it could be, hey, we're going to announce something at the typical summer E3 kind of presentation for that holiday, like Ocarina of Time remake. But if they said, hey, there is a 3D Mario game and it's not coming out until sometime in 2027, maybe late 2027, if they really do have that ready to roll to make the announcement, it's just more than a year away, I would still recommend making that announcement because you are dealing with a system that is the most expensive thing they've really ever sold. So that is indeed how you would work to drive interest in your system, not just stuff that's in the near term, stuff far off in the distance. People are waiting for that, almost that big blowout direct where they do start hitting all the classics, if you will. And I think this is where Nintendo has to really consider the idea of, hey, the 3D Mario game, it will come out someday. All these big games will happen, but we just need to start laying the seeds and putting it all out there. And I think that's something maybe they'll work to do, yes, in June when we see hopefully, a big general direct that everyone's excited for. Now let's move over to Sony with the PlayStation 6 because naturally they were asked about it, as in their own explanatory materials, they mention R&D for their next generation device. And yes, that is going to show up on the cost side of the balance sheet because it's not cheap to create these things. So naturally, they have to show that they are going to be putting out some money and it will eat into their bottom line. But the idea being, hey, we will eventually launch the thing and it'll be exciting and people will be buying it and we'll be raking in all this money. At least that's the best case scenario, the general idea for this thing. But it doesn't necessarily happen if maybe it's hard to launch in the current climate, especially around the RAM shortage, everything that's happening right now. So they were, of course, asked all about what's happening with the PlayStation 6, but also the PlayStation 5. Like, hey, it's starting to falter a bit right now. It is falling behind the PlayStation 4. Like, it's not gaining on the PS4. And unfortunately for Sony, it does seem like this is a situation where getting enough RAM to be able to put the systems together is becoming challenging. So even if you have a crazy popular generational game like GTA 6, if you don't have the stock of systems put alongside of it to have like a massive year, like crazy 20 million some odd systems, if you can't do it just because you can't produce the system, you're kind of stuck. So with that in mind, the PS5, while I think it's going to be around for a long time, I do think it's going to be a situation where it takes a bit longer even to pass the PS4. It just has to be on the market for a while to get there, right? Well, when asked about this is Hiroki Totoki, the CEO. So he does go on here with the PlayStation 6. This is over on VGC who transcribed this. I'll have links to both of these pages down below in the comments, all right? And he says that there have not yet been an official decision on when to release the PlayStation 6 and how much to sell it for, because the upcoming component situation isn't yet clear. So we're in almost mid-2026, and we think this is a holiday 2027 system, all right, which means that in, 8 months, they're going to start saying stuff about this system. It says we have not yet decided on what timing we will launch the new console or at what prices, so we would like to really observe and follow the situation. Looking at the current circumstances, the memory price is also expected to be very high fiscal year 27 because there will be a shortage of supply. So under that assumption, we must think carefully what we will do. Totoki added that as well as thinking of other ways to reduce the cost of the hardware in other areas, Sony will consider new potential ways to sell the PS6. We would like to think about various simulations, including changing business models to come up with the best solution and strategy. So, all right. Selling the PlayStation 6. So, different strategies could include the way that they subsidize the system typically. Maybe they're thinking, you know what? The PS5 is going to be around for a while, and that'll be the more the more budget oriented system at right now starting at $600. But maybe this PS6 slots in right around where the PS5 Pro is, $900. Maybe they get it out at $800, and they're going to come up with ways to get it to people through. I've seen some mention the idea of like payment plans from Sony. So it's upgrade paths. People are comparing it to cell phone. It's like, oh, this is really where we are now with game consoles, that we're starting to bring that up, because I'm unsure how the PS6 is affordable at all approachable. All right, because the rumors that have been going around for the specifications on this thing, 24 to 30 gigabytes of GDDR7, that is incredibly expensive. So I have no idea, because the chip itself, that's stuff that they've been engineering with AMD, setting this all up. And then here comes this RAM situation that completely spikes the price and in a way kind of ruins it for them with that end. So AMD, Mark Cerny's team, they've been rolling along, designing this chip, figuring out how they're going to incorporate their AI upscaling PSSR next generation. And okay, now the parts are too expensive for this to all work. So I am really curious what exactly they mean when they say various simulations, including changing business models. Because right now their business model is indeed subsidize the system, sell a bunch of them, and then make up for it on the back end with software sales. Well, if they decide not to subsidize as much, release an expensive system, and then just try to monetize the people that are there with the PlayStation 5 and almost have the PS6 as like their new PS5 Pro, and you have full cross-gen gaming, that's going to be tough. So I'm unsure as to what their strategy right now is for the PS6. And you know what's crazy? Kind of seems to be the same for them. They're still trying to figure out when it's coming out. They're trying to figure out the pricing. And some are saying, hey, delay it, 2028. You know what the issue is? I don't know if the memory situation is going to be any better in 2028 than it will be in 2027. So if that's the case, you may as well move on it and just say, you know what, this is where we are. And if we can figure out ways to revise the system and get prices down later, that's the path we'll go. It's weird times, isn't it? Very, very strange. We're talking about systems skyrocketing in price. Sure, Nintendo raised it $50, but we've talked about Sony starting the generation with a $400 system, and now here we are with them with a $600 PlayStation 5 digital system, a $900 PS5 Pro. It's wild stuff when the PS6 is supposedly coming out next holiday. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, whether it's Nintendo apologizing for raising the price, putting some of their strategy out there when it comes to a robust lineup of games. What do you think that includes? And then Sony with their comments to investors on the memory shortage, how it's affecting things, not only at the PS5, but also the PS6. What other simulations or changing business models do you think they can incorporate here to make the numbers work out for the PlayStation 6 on their end and also for the consumers? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.